Well, the FedExCup playoffs are over, but still plenty of time to talk about Scottie Scheffler and the run he had. What did it mean by the odds? We crunched all the crazy numbers on Scottie. Favorites this fall, there's plenty of them, and some defending champs you have to watch out for, plus some names that you want to look at in the FedExCup Fall. The round table does not rest, folks. Chris Brees, Will Gray, and Benny Betts. Guys, what are you looking forward to this fall most of all?
I personally, I just like the notion of seeing where these guys end up as we look to that top 125 number. I'm an old school guy. I love the drama at the Wyndham before, where you had, you're either in or you're out at that top 125 number. We saw it last year at the RSM, and I think as we get further into the fall, some of those storylines are going to rise to the top. And it's always interesting to see when you have those sort of stakes for guys of knowing the season that they're going to be able to lock in potentially by staying inside that top 125 or moving inside that number versus what life is like on the other side of the bubble.
100% will. And also there's that bubble at the top, right? The 50 to 60 guys who want to be in those first couple of signature events next season. That's something to keep an eye on, which always keeps me interested. But I'm with you. It's all about getting your job back. It's all about getting that card, that 125 or 150 if you want conditional status. But as we've seen, the further down that list you are, even if you are in it, it's hard to get a lot of starts. It's hard to get some continuity in your season. So there's a lot at stake for these guys as they play over the fall. And with that in mind, that can also get your vibes going for betting markets as well, because you know that certain guys can step up when they need to and others not so much.
We've got fall talk coming up. Let's start with Scottie Scheffler, guys. And the numbers that you crunched, Ben, on the wide array of odds that Scottie had from March all the way till August when he won the Tour Championship. 8 total victories for Scottie Scheffler. So here's what we did on these. We found the Open, we found the High Point, and we had the Sunday beginning of round 4 odds for Scottie Scheffler in all 8 of his victories. Benny, when we look at all these numbers in red, what pops out to you the most?
Well, it's the Sunday high point as well, of course. So then you've got to figure out where you're going to go. But what comes out for me here is he was obviously the short-priced favourite the whole time. And had you bet him in those, he played 20 times. So if you had bet, say, $100 every time he played, you would have profited just over $2,000 this season on that. But they were odds that we talked every week pretty much on the roundtable that were too short to jump on. So could you have got more money if you waited, if you played the fluctuations? Absolutely. Look at those high numbers. Some of them are outrageous. Getting on at 6,000 when he was 6 back with 7 holes to play at the Olympics, that's a tough ask to jump on. Had you done it, you're a genius. But others, 800 there was an 1,100, 1,400. If you waited for, say, 10 to 1, you would have made a slightly better profit over those events if you had to wait and see how he started. He had a propensity to come back, which he hadn't really done in the past before this season, which is one of the reasons I started off the year saying, not sure he's as great as everyone says. He proved me wrong this season.
But Ben, we need to look at the wild nature of this graphic right here. How many guys, you can probably count on one hand the number of players that start any PGA Tour event with odds below plus 1,500. Yeah. 6 out of those 8 wins, Scottie Scheffler never got above plus 1,400. Yeah. He's just sitting there in this other stratosphere that no one else is in, where he's opening at plus 300 and plus 400 for majors. And even when he has a little bit of a wobble, he's maybe getting up to plus 800 or plus 1,100. You're right. Those comebacks at TPC Sawgrass and at Le Golf National, those were remarkable and a bit unexpected, understandably so, given where he was entering the final round. But the other 6, he was just right there, essentially at pre-tournament chalk for anyone not named Scottie Scheffler.
I think we can appreciate one thing about this. It was a wide array of victories for Scheffler. I mean, Memorial, you're going in as minus money to win the thing. And a couple of these, like you had said, his Open was his high. I think we forget just how special, what was it, the last 4 or 5 holes of the Players' Championship. I know Xander had played so great and then had a couple of bad holes coming in, but the last 4 or 5 holes, Will, that Scheffler had on Sunday at the Players, I think that goes overlooked in a lot of these numbers and a lot of these wins that he had.
Yeah, and there's, the whole butterfly effect of, does he win, how many of these without winning the Players, and how much of a momentum boost was that heading into winning his second green jacket at the Masters. But you're right, the Players was a great tournament, but up until about an hour, the final hour, no one was really talking about Scottie Scheffler going back to back. It was all about him dealing with his neck injuries and how much that was affecting his swing. And even he holds out on the fourth hole on Sunday, and everyone's like, all right, that's cute, that's nice. And then you're right, he blew the doors off of everyone and ends up winning the thing even without a playoff. It was quite a Sunday.
For me, the big ones there are the ones you mentioned earlier, the ones that never even got over the start point. I mean, one of those is the Masters. Come on. Like, you start as the 5-1 favourite at the Masters and never see better odds. That's incredible performance, no matter what your name is. To do it also at the Memorial at plus 400, never come above that. Crazy stuff. That again, that is flying in the face of my advice pretty much all year, which was to not touch his opening price. I still stand by it because, as I said, if you hit it, my sweet spot would have been 10-1, and you would have made a little bit more money if you waited for that. But at the same time, he has proven that this was an out-of-the-box season. Brilliant stuff. And if you were a fan and you were on him every week, good luck to you. You've come out on top. You've done really well. You've hit more outrights than I did all season, so good luck.
And my favorite part about that whole thing was about, do you think, 2/3 of those weeks we thought, oh, Scheffler just won 2 weeks ago. He can't win again. Or he won last week. That doesn't happen. He won a major last week. That ain't going to happen. And we got proved wrong time and time again. Now, everybody wants to have the season Scottie Scheffler had. So many tour players need to get through the fall first if they want to get in those big events in 2025. So let's talk fall schedule, guys. A little bit different in 2024, but really when you look at it, not a whole lot different. Pro Court Championship staying where it was, September 12th weekend, and then a little bit of a break with the President's Cup, a couple of weeks off, and then October is a gauntlet. Sanderson Farms, Black Desert, Shriners, Zozo, basically 4 weeks in a row, and then November, 3 more events, Worldwide Technology, Butterfield Bermuda, and RSM Classic. That's all leading up into Thanksgiving. It's 8 events in the FedEx Fall series. Now, a lot of different storylines to talk about, Will. We have the players who are trying to get into signature events next year, the first 2, Century and Pebble Beach, right? We have the players trying to make the top 125 and get in and be generally, in the normal tournaments, be exempted for those. Where do you want to start? You want to start guys we expect to do well, or guys that maybe are under the radar who you think could make a run this fall?
We can work top down. That's fine. I think you're right. We have 2 different, barometers essentially there. The top 125, they're going to be in all the full field events next year, and importantly, they get a spot in the Players in 2025. But you're right. 51-60. We saw this happen last fall. Ludwig Oberg was one of the big beneficiaries of getting into that, upper echelon. He got into the Century and into Pebble Beach, and then didn't miss a signature event the rest of the year. So I think that's a good place to start. We've got a number of notable players defending tournaments as defending champions, including Sahith Theegala, coming up here in Napa, and then you've got Tom Kim going for 3 in a row at the Shriners. Morikawa won Zozo last year, but we're seeing here Ludwig Oberg. Then I'm very interested to see what we get out of the Swede, who we just found out this week is undergoing some arthroscopic knee surgery. He's going to be out for a few weeks. I think the general expectation is that he'll be back in time to defend that RSM title. But knowing, the season he had and how ascendant his trajectory seems to be, I'm very interested to see how he plays, how much he plays this fall, and kind of assessing where he's at health-wise heading into 2025.
Fascinating, you're right. Yeah, that meniscus tear that apparently wasn't true until it was true from Ludwig. It's good to see.
Because you asked
how
him.
he's look. To be honest, he's played brilliant battling with that all year. Like the fact that he's done what he's done with that sort of issue, and yeah, the arthroscopic surgery will take place. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes great. If I'm him, I probably wouldn't play until defending, and I would just sort of shut that down, try to make sure I'm fully recovered. Take it easy and then take a break and reset, because I have this feeling that, it got to him by the end of the year, right? He started to sort of fade a little bit. His Sunday rounds were a little bit less than what we expected from him. I think he just needs a breather. It might be a blessing in disguise sort of thing to have this bit of time off, and off he goes. Theegala is going to be a sensational watch, because he's going to want to defend, but he's also got the President's Cup on his mind coming up after that. So we'll see how he goes there in Napa. And Tommy Kim, he just loves Vegas. He just absolutely loves it. So I could absolutely see him going 3 in a row there because I feel like he'll turn up ready to win and ready to go. So Ludwig's an injury cloud that I'm interested to watch. As we know, Jordan Spieth also got a wrist surgery. We'll be waiting to see what he does when he comes back next year. There's a few guys that are getting a few cleanups that are very interesting indeed.
It has seen
Tom Kim looking to go. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah,
Tom Kim will be the first since 2009 to 2011. Steve Stricker at the Deere to go 3 in a row. It's been a long time since we've had a three-peat on tour. And then the other wrinkle I'll throw in this discussion is that new event, the Black Desert event out in Utah.
Yeah.
That's the new add to the fall schedule. I would expect Tony Finau, as a Utah native, is probably going to be in that field, although we don't know that for sure. But just seeing a new event, new course, I think that's going to be certainly some fun viewing out in the mountains of Utah.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see if, like, Cantlay, for instance, turns up again at Vegas, because he could challenge Tom Kim for favoritism there, having had such a good record.
The last couple of years, the fall has felt like it's been a springboard for players' careers. I mean, think about Max Homa a couple of years ago, and then the streak he went on the following spring. Will, who do you got this fall in 2024 to maybe have a springboard, a player who's kind of lesser known right now, who could maybe be one of those bigger names come January and maybe even get into some of those signature events?
When this guy is in the mix, it's must-watch TV because you genuinely don't know what's going to happen. Alejandro Tosti, we saw him. He almost knocked off Scottie Scheffler. He finished second at the Houston Open when Stefan Jaeger ended up winning that tournament. And he's been in the mix here or there since then, but he's currently outside the top 125. He's going to head into the fall at 129 in the FedExCup. So a critically important stretch for him to, as we said, get inside that top 125, secure his playing privileges for 2025, including the players. But listen, this guy, there's not a ton of PGA Tour players that I'm taller than. I think Alejandro Tosti probably qualifies. He definitely hits it farther than I do. He hits it farther than most people on the PGA Tour does. This guy absolutely launches it. He's very fiery, wears his emotions on his sleeve. So if he gets into the mix, as we saw earlier this year, I think it could be a fun watch.
I love him. He's a firebrand. It's good to see. It's a shame he didn't play better this season. He would have been a very interesting character had he been good enough to be on the International President's Cup team. That would have been sensational. But yeah, look, he's got it in him. He's just got to turn up more often than not, right? You've got to see his best more often, more consistently for him to make that move.
We'll see who the competitors are too. The guys who really want it most, and when crunch time comes around, when they get into November, and then those numbers start ticking away, and who's going to make the signature events, who's going to be top 125. Will Toasty be one of those? We'll find out. There's also players this fall who are coming off past injuries. We don't expect Jordan Spieth to be playing much, if at all. You mentioned Ludwig. But your player to watch, Ben, is a player also kind of coming off some injuries.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how this is going to go. Daniel Berger, it wasn't that long ago, really, that he was a lock for these team events like the President's Cup, etc. He was an up-and-coming star alongside most of those players. And he had the troubles with injury, obviously. He's been coming back. He hasn't really bruised a grape, to be honest. He's outside the 125. But I want to see him have some fire, some passion. I want to see him make that move back towards the upper echelon. And I think the fall is that chance for him. The fall is the chance for him to have a reset, go, okay, now I've got to prove that I belong here again, that I want to be here again, that I have the desire to do this once more. Multiple time winner, as we know, on tour. So he just becomes must-see TV for me to see what he can bring, what part of his game he can bring back. It's one of those guys that's starting to get forgotten despite all the things he's done in golf. Does he want to still be a part of this? We'll find out this fall.
He hasn't bruised a grape. That's a new one for me. I'm adding that to my Aussie lexicon. I will take note accordingly. But you're right. Listen, let's go back even to last year in the fall, and we saw some of these storylines. Eric Van Rooyen having that emotional victory down in Mexico. Camilo Villegas getting back into the winner's circle for the first time in several years. Daniel Berger might fit that mold of a player that you wouldn't be totally surprised to see lifting a trophy, but in the week in and week out, he has kind of faded to the background a little bit because he missed so much time. I think we ended up being around 18 months of playing time. So it's good to see him back and in the mix this year. He still has work to do to get inside that top 125 and lock things up for next year. But I do think he would fit in that mold of what we saw from last year in the fall of people that turn up and storylines that kind of deliver. And he would be right there with what we saw a year ago.
You don't want to become the forgotten guy that was a former winner that's just sort of getting in on past champion status or begging for sponsors invites. You don't want to become that person, right? So this is it. There's a line drawn in the sand. Turn up in the fall if you really want it, Daniel. And I think you're, the type of guy that could do what Ludwig did last year. Win a fall event, get yourself into that 50 to 60, and then turn it into a great signature event season. It's there for him to take if he really wants it. And that's, as I said, I'm not necessarily saying he's going to do it. I'm saying I'm fascinated to see his psyche and what he's going to bring to the fall.
Yeah, think about the wide array of emotions on Daniel Berger, who you could have argued 3 years ago was this close to superstar status. And then that injury happens. And now we're potentially talking about a guy who might be forgotten. Now, 2024's fall season could be critical. I mean, the guy's not that old. He's just fine. He's got plenty of years to come back. But we don't want to call it critical. But the fact that 2024 could be his springboard will be very fun to watch. Guys, we have roundtables coming up most of these fall weeks here on the PGA Tour. Any final thoughts you guys have on, between now, no rest, and then before you know it, RSM's done, and we got Hero, and then a new season?
I've got a feeling. Look out. The President's Cup teams were announced today.
Here we go.
The internationals, can they finally do it? We'll talk about this in the coming weeks, but I'm going to find reasons out there. Somewhere. I'll find it. I'm going into the data. I'll find a reason that the international team can finally get this done in Canada.
My final thought was going to be I was glad that Ben didn't do it in wearing his team international garb. So I guess that's out the window. I have to come up with a new final thought as he continues to mine the data heading into Royal Montreal.
He's got 2 weeks to figure out that data. And you know what, Will?